Hayward, an academic from Queen's University Belfast. She's an expert on Irish cross-border relations and EU integration. Welcome to the Daily Politics. Katie, Theresa May said on Friday that she offered not one but two separate solutions to the Irish border issue after Brexit, and that now it's incumbent on the EU to give those options serious consideration. Is she right?
Well, no, we only heard on Friday really a reiteration of what she'd said in August, which is a customs union partnership and streamlined customs arrangement, and that was already dismissed by the EU as being magical thinking. I think it's really quite significant that the customs partnership idea hasn't progressed any further. So a customs union, you're either in or you're out of it, and the suggestion that 80% of traders wouldn't be subject to customs requirements is really nonsensical, because it means that you're essentially saying your border is open.
Right. I mean, you say it's nonsensical, but this customs partnership that you've outlined, it would be where we would agree to charge the EU's tariffs on goods heading to the continent via the UK, and then we wouldn't need to check them when moving from the UK to the EU. What is wrong with that?
Because a customs union arrangement is essentially where you're dealing with what the UK is saying for third countries and what the EU is saying for third countries. Now, if you have different arrangements between the UK and the EU and third countries, you have to have different implications for the border, for the management of that border. So it's impossible to enact two different customs arrangements at the same time.
All right. I mean, can you explain it for our viewers? Because it is difficult to imagine for all of us exactly what it would mean in practice. Because Theresa May also talks about technology being used, which would mean there would be a sort of invisible border, because you could pre-register companies, you could have a set of trusted traders. Why is that not workable?
Technology can be used to make a customs border controls more efficient and certainly speed up movement across a customs border, and a trusted trader scheme is well established. But it doesn't replace the need for clarity about what that customs border arrangement actually is. I've described it before, if you're thinking about technology, as trying to think about the light fittings in a house before you've even got the planning permission for the house. And it's that planning permission, it's the structures of the house that we need much more clarity on before we think about technology. Technology doesn't really replace the need to enact a customs border. It's just a means of doing so.
And when we talk about a hard border, and everybody says they want to avoid a hard border, is that cameras along the 300 miles? Is it infrastructure that would stop a number of trucks and deliveries coming through that border? Is that what a hard border looks like?
A hard border is felt in the differences on either side. So a hard border is felt in what, for example, a business or a company has to do in order to move their goods across the border, or indeed, if somebody wants to provide a service on the other side of the border, what they have to do to be able to cross it. So it's in those barriers, it's in those obstacles and difficulties that a hard border is felt. It's not just in terms of infrastructure.
Right. Alex, listening to that, I mean, Katie is an expert. She says that the two proposals being put forward by the Prime Minister are not workable solutions. And the Prime Minister has said it is incumbent on the government, also working with the Irish government and the EU, to come up with better ideas. What are those better ideas?
Well, with all due respect, Katie, I disagree. I do think that the solution put forward by the Prime Minister last week is workable.
Which one?
That you would have a technological solution which would enable relatively free flow of trade across the border, with a large exemption for small traders, but with automatic electronic tracking for large traders. Now, the reason I say that I think this is workable is not only because it sounds sensical, but also because in November last year, the European Parliament's Policy Department on Citizens' Rights and Constitutional Affairs published a paper called Smart Border 2.0, where they proposed exactly this. They looked at a range of border arrangements, including Canada and the US, who are not in a customs union, but where technology has enabled exactly this sort of relationship across border. And the fact that there are people in Europe saying that this is possible, and we're saying it's possible in the UK, means that this may be one way of getting to the end point that we all want to get to, which is to have a borderless situation in Ireland.
Well, Katie,
we want that, the EU want that, and the Irish government want that.
What do you say to that?
I was commissioned with David Finnemore to write a report from the same committee, so I sat beside Lars Carlson when he presented that report to the European Parliament, and it was very clear that the smart border technology does not avert the need for properly enforcing a customs border. And so if you're saying that 80% of traders will not face any restrictions crossing the border, you're essentially saying you're not enacting a customs border. And this is the problem from the EU's point of view. How do they know that goods coming in that are of lower standard, as according to trade deals that the UK might do, will not come into the EU via Northern Ireland? This is a very serious point. And Lars Carlson, in his report and in his presentation, is very clear that this isn't. He's not clear about the particularities of the Irish case. There's a very clear need for distinctive arrangements in relation to Ireland, Northern Ireland, and it was good to see Theresa May reiterating again on Friday that the 1998 agreement, it has to be central to whatever is put forward for Ireland and Northern Ireland in the future.
Right, Mary Cray, you've said yourself you don't think Labour's policy as it stands will solve the Irish border issue either. It would have to be staying in a single market too. But there's no sign that Jeremy Corbyn's going to sign up to that.
Well, I think Jeremy has moved on the customs union, and I think we could see further movement as the consequences of what the Conservative Party are proposing become clearer during the negotiation phase. But can I just go back to what Katie's been saying? I mean, this is real magical thinking from the Prime Minister. This is what Katie's analogy about the House is an important one, because the Prime Minister can't say what she wants, because to set out what she wants would separate the two wings of her party in an irrevocable split. So what she focuses on is the means, but not the what. She talks about technological solutions. Can somebody help us with this? What she doesn't say is what she actually wants. And I'm afraid it's another classic example of fudge on
But she has said what she wants. What she wants is to have an invisible border. She wants technological solutions to actually ease that across the border, and she doesn't want to break up the integrity of the UK, rightly or wrongly. And that is why it cannot be down the Irish Sea, in that sense, having a customs border. So when you say she doesn't say what she wants, what do you mean?
What I'm saying is she cannot say how she will stop Northern Ireland becoming an entry point for goods of a lower standard and quality, and until she can do that, all the talk of technological solutions is for the birds. It's just fantasy. She needs to talk about what the customs arrangements will be and what they will cover before we get into cameras and border checks.
Well, we'll find out, of course, the EU's response later this week. Katie, thank you very much for joining us. Now it's time for